One of my early career mentors taught me was not to be afraid to go out and ask people and talk to people, and asking, hey, look, I want to be where you are in 10 years' time. Can we have a chat?
Welcome to another episode of Microsoft Mentors, the podcast. Microsoft Mentors is designed to lift the lid on the journeys of the most successful leaders in the Microsoft partner ecosystem. Every week, through candid conversations with founders, business owners, and technology thought leaders, we explore their strategies, grit, and lessons behind their growth and how they're building competitive advantage for the future. These are the untold stories and practical lessons from leaders who are defining success in Azure, AI, data, app innovation, and security. Our mission is simple: to tell partner stories at scale and create impactful Microsoft conversations. Hello and welcome to another episode of Microsoft Mentors, the podcast. Today I'm joined by Adam Dolman. Hi Adam, how you doing?
Good, Ollie, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad. It's a little bit warm in the Microsoft Mentors podcast studio today. Bit of muggy British summer today, I think, is what I'm feeling.
Yeah, indeed. And I just closed my windows to not get any outside noise on this. So I think the temperature's rising in my office.
Awesome. Well, I guess for anyone that doesn't know you, Adam, good just to get just a very quick sort of high-level introduction on you and what your current role is, if that's all right, mate.
Yeah, sure. So I just realised just before this, I'm about a month off the 20th anniversary of starting my career in IT. So right now I'm the part of the Global Alliances team at Atos, Global Systems Integrator, where I'm the CTO for our Microsoft partnership, so covering the whole Microsoft ecosystem from Azure, Workplace, Power Apps, the whole ecosystem.
Yeah, and we're quite fresh now, aren't we, into Microsoft FY26.
Indeed.
As is always the way with Microsoft, there's lots of things to get our heads around with new financial years, and it feels like FY26 is quite a big year for change. I guess is there anything out there that sort of jumped out for you or the team at Atos around sort of the new FY26 programs?
Yeah, it's like you say, July is always an interesting time as half the people disappear for the first couple of weeks as they're refreshing all their programs and getting up to date, having to learn your way through all the new partner programs and financial initiatives, all of the main target and growth areas. Like you say, it's an interesting time, and yeah, some of the themes of the last year are definitely continuing. Agentic AI, obviously, is always top of the agenda from Copilot and AI Foundry. But I think also we're seeing a big push from Microsoft, but also demand from customers around sovereign cloud, and also even transferring into sovereign AI that started with the announcement of the new sovereign program a couple of months ago from Satya at the AI tour, which definitely seeing a lot of traction on that, especially from European customers.
Yeah. We dive into that in a bit more detail later as well, because I'm sure we can get right into the weeds of that. But I guess if we throw it over to sort of you and your career, Adam, You mentioned that you're literally just coming up to 20 years now. And I always like to, and if people have listened to the podcast before, they'll know what's coming, is get a bit of a feel for what that initial spark is for people in their IT careers. Was it tinkering with laptops in your bedroom? Was it gaming? Did you fall in for it for education? What was that sort of initial spark for you in tech?
Yeah, I think I've always been a bit of a computer geek. My computer journey started in the mid-'80s with a Commodore 64. And my mum has an anecdote that apparently I learned how to type my name before I could write it with a pen. So, and yeah, going through all of school and into uni, it was all about computer science for me, which is what I studied at uni. And when it was time to start a career, it was all about going into tech. And I started my career then going into networking. So I was a Cisco network engineer to start with. And that's kind of set the path out to where I am now, going through sort of the IT infrastructure path, starting in networks, which took me through the first 8 years or so of my career before I sort of moved then into IT, what wasn't really called private cloud yet, but became private cloud, and then ultimately into public cloud.
Yeah, quite a traditional journey then, really. That initial networking piece into IT infrastructure, and then obviously the natural progression over the course of the last 15 years, as that slowly becoming more and more public cloud focused for a lot of people, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
And with you and sort of those early stages of your career, obviously you would have been fairly technical to start with. When did the transition start happening for you? Away from maybe more of the day-to-day hands-on technical into more strategic leadership type roles.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I do love being hands-on and doing stuff, and yeah, that really isn't part of my job anymore. So it's this kind of thing that creeps up on you, I feel, and then one day you think, oh, I don't actually do hands-on stuff anymore, really. Although I still do like to get my hands dirty every now and then. Although work-wise, it's increasingly difficult to do so. It really isn't part of my job. If I'm having to write Terraform code or something for somebody, it's a bad day.
Yeah.
But skipping ahead of my story, I rejoined Atos a couple of years ago after taking a break somewhere else. And I came back into a role then that really wasn't about having any form of hands-on delivery. It was about leading that strategy, leading an engineering team, helping to mentor others. And that really, I think, was a definitive yes. I'm definitely not doing anything hands-on at all anymore. It is about that strategic leadership, defining standards, setting directions, etc.
Yeah. You mentioned that sort of creeping up on. Do you think it was it always on your career roadmap, do you think, for you in your head to sort of work towards those more strategic type roles?
Yeah, so internally we have something called an internal development plan, or used to it's probably called something else now. And I think it was my 5-year plan a few years ago was always to get to a CTO-like position. So I think it was a career goal. I got there and was really helping to define the strategy. And that's where I got. And yes, occasionally I do miss just getting into the weeds of something, but you also get benefits from it as well now.
Yeah. And I guess because where I think there's a lot of value from these conversations with Microsoft mentors, and a lot of our listeners, our listener base is a real mixture of sort of senior leadership type people, but also people that are in the midst of their technical career, but maybe are looking to try and push more towards their 5-10 year goal might be to work towards CTO. So is there anything that you can pick out in your career that you think really helped to sort of catapult you and lead you in that sort of direction towards that type of role?
Yeah, I think I've been very fortunate in my career of being able to work with some incredibly brilliant people. Right from the very beginning of my career, sort of the people I was getting to work with and getting to learn from, I think have always been key on how I've ended up taking my next steps. And thinking about maybe we go back about 10 years ago, or maybe a bit more than that, in like 2010 time, I think that's really when I was thinking, okay, where do I want my career to go over the next 5 to 10 years now? And making sort of the moves at the right time to get yourself exposed to the right sort of environments, people, conversations, to get exposure to, well, what does it mean to be setting strategy? Not just at a level of an individual account, which might be where it starts, or client, or conversation, and then taking that forwards and using that to learn. And something one of my early career mentors taught me was not to be afraid to go out and ask people and talk to people. And reaching out to not just peers, but other senior leadership and asking, hey, look, I want to be where you are in 10 years' time. Can we have a chat? Exactly a bit as we're doing now on this podcast, but just more on a local scale in my company even.
Yeah. You mentioned that sort of fairly sort of forming period around sort of that early 2010s type time frame. You were quite heavily involved, I think we spoke about, around projects around the Olympics with Atos and working as sort of early adopters in what would have been modern work 0365 probably back then, was it?
So 2009 I started working on London 2012 Olympics, and I think really that's where we did some very innovative work at the time for bringing in concepts like infrastructure as code, that I don't think was even aware it was called infrastructure as code at the time, but creating nice PowerShell scripts powered by CSVs to deploy virtual infrastructure. Would definitely be private cloud of infrastructure as code today. Back then it was virtualization of a bunch of scripts. So I got involved with my first, I guess you'll call it, private cloud project was on VMware on ESX3, probably back in 2007, something like that. And that was, for me, a real eye-opener, just going and consolidating a customer server estate from racks of servers into one rack and a blade center with 8 servers in it. And that was kind of a bit of a wow moment for me, like, okay, this is where technology is going. And that's kind of when my career started to pivot a bit from just being in networking to more general infrastructure and virtualization.
Yeah, it's interesting when you sort of map that across the timeline of technology evolution, right? You go from big data centers and server racks down to virtualization. Then we start moving towards public cloud or hybrid with some private and some public in there. And now we're on this even faster road towards the AI era. Who knows, at some point we might end up in the quantum era. It's crazy, that sort of rate of iteration and change, isn't it?
It really is. In fact, we've got a white paper we're working on over the last few months that might be out, I'm not sure yet, which is exactly about the evolution of IT in the Olympics, going all the way back to 1992, Barcelona, and how it sort of changed over the years to the modern day. And yeah, it's the rate of change, it never slows down. I think when you're in the point, you feel it's maybe not changing as fast as it was. But like you say, if you look at AI now, it's just so hard to even keep up to date with the pace of an evolution of things. It's very exciting times.
Yeah. And I guess in that Olympic example is probably quite unique, is it? Because I imagine they have to, let's take London, for example. They win the bid in whatever year they win it, let's say 2008 or whatever. They've got a certain time period between winning the bid and the Olympics, I guess, of standing up a whole ecosystem of infrastructure to deliver the games, right?
Yeah, for sure. And in the days before cloud computing, and going back to sort of London, for example, it was building out a data center of hundreds of servers in racks that you stage a few years before the game starts. So it's a fine balance of wanting cutting edge stuff to deliver innovation, but also needing to deliver that 5 nines SLA for people really wanting to know how quickly someone just finished 100 meters.
Yeah, because it's one of those where it's such a defined dedeline that Usain Bolt's not going to wait for you guys to have your data center up and running.
I guess in the world of a lot of IT projects, that's a little bit different to many. As a lot of deadlines in enterprise IT tend to be a little bit more flexible and might slip a bit, and the repercussions may not be that severe. But yeah, working on the Olympics, it's going to happen.
Yeah. And then you sort of alluded to it earlier. So you sort of built through your career at Atos and then took a breakaway and went to work over at City. I guess to start off with, was there anything that sort of ignited that step out into a new environment? Was there anything that you were seeking to sort of going out to work somewhere else?
Yeah, so I'd been at Atos for 17 years, or coming up to 17 years, I think it was. And this is one of those occasions where you just get this message on LinkedIn from a recruiter that you think is going to go nowhere, but you say, let's explore it. And it presented a really exciting opportunity to move and do something not necessarily new. It's building out cloud for a client. That's the kind of thing I was already doing, but doing it for in-house in a completely different sort of sector with new people. And I thought it was a great opportunity to go and learn something new, another perspective, another way of doing things in a different environment. And yeah, it's one of those LinkedIn messages that went somewhere. I wasn't actively looking. It came along, it went through, and decided to jump ship and had a really great time. And I think for me, a huge learning experience that although I've jumped around many different teams in Atos and different projects from internal IT and Olympics and multiple customers, moving to a completely different company with a completely different way of doing things, I think for me it was a big benefit to see how other people are doing things in a different place, to learn more about an industry I'd not hugely worked in before, which is financial services. So definitely something that I think helped advance me a lot as an individual, to from many fronts, from a technology perspective, a process perspective. It was an exciting move, an opportunity I really enjoyed.
Yeah, and I guess all of those lessons learned and new perspectives are then something that you could and have, I would imagine, brought back into your your last few years at Atos in your last couple of roles there. Then
as you allude to, I sprung back to Atos after a couple of years in City, as Atos was making some strategic changes in the company while I'd been away, and I got convinced to come back for a new role that was, I think, very exciting and building on top of some of the things I sort of was learning in my absence as well, to lead a new division that was all about the Microsoft ecosystem. So building Microsoft cloud-based solutions, but also almost kind of a startup incubator inside of a big company. So working as a small division to take forwards things that are new and innovative. Sort of a couple of years ago, we're talking sort of the real growth phase of Gen AI, for example, and building offerings around that and looking at what can we do and innovate and try and be a fast company inside of a very large company.
Yeah. And almost like we've planned this, Adam, which we haven't too much, but that almost took me identically onto sort of what I wanted to sort of get my head around next. Because obviously, you've got Atos as a massive global systems integrator. You then got the Microsoft business unit within that. Probably, I would imagine the agility and the way that particular ecosystem works is maybe slightly different to other parts of Atos. I would imagine probably advantages in terms of, economy of scale levers that you can pull at being part of Atos and having that Microsoft business unit in there, but also maybe some trade-offs or some challenges to that. So what does that scale look like between the sort of the two, building that incubator within such a large SI?
Yeah, so Atos has gone through a period of change and reorganization, and we've now sort of consolidated into our new operating model that was announced at our Capital Markets Day back in May. And like you said, we are a company with huge global scale, but I think what we try to bring down to is then also our local delivery capabilities and our local knowledge and our industry knowledge that we have embedded in all of the countries we work in. So my role as part of the Microsoft Alliance, which is global, spanning all of our business lines in all of our countries, is to stitch together everything we're doing internally and find these incredible ideas that you might find being done by a particular customer in one country, and making sure that we evangelize that properly, while also working with Microsoft to understand what they've got coming up in the pipeline, and equally sell what we're doing internally up to Microsoft to say, hey, look at these great things we've got going on right now, so that they're equally aware of what we're doing and working on.
Yeah, it's such a sort of a dance between the three, isn't it? in the, sort of the Microsoft ecosystem, you've got the the actual technology delivery at the client end that's being done. You've got the partner in the middle, like Atos, and then you've got Microsoft on the other side. And it's like you say, it sounds like your job is almost connecting all of those three moving parts to make sure that everyone is getting benefit and value across each other.
The other bit of that is, of course, us as a customer, which also is part of what I look after as well from a technology perspective. So, it's an interesting juggling act sometimes.
Yeah, no doubt. And so when it comes to sort of Atos in the Microsoft world, is that pretty all-encompassing then? So everything from, if we use the new FY26 terms, everything cloud and AI platforms, AI business solutions and security, that whole blend of the ecosystem?
Yeah. We're capable of playing across the whole spectrum of Microsoft offerings. And obviously my background comes mainly from the cloud space, AI more recently. I certainly would not call myself a Power Platform expert, for example. But that's why we've got teams of people who are, that I get to lean on. And I think I only know so much, and I'm only as good as the people that I get to surround myself with. And thankfully, I get to surround myself with a bunch of great experts around the world.
Yeah. And it feels like Microsoft have, over the course of the last decade that I've been involved in the Microsoft partner ecosystem, it really does feel like they've now got a really holistic product set where, if you've come into the Microsoft world, where a lot of businesses probably come in as a first step in that sort of modern work M365 world, but then, especially with Copilot now coming in, how does that then integrate across to Dynamics 365? That then bleeding into infrastructure, the security bit that wraps around it. You can do pretty much everything at enterprise now with the Microsoft product set if you want to, can't you?
Yeah, for sure. It can be a one-stop shop across everything, and I'm the Microsoft guy. I'd love everybody to stop at the world of Microsoft as a result, but equally have to acknowledge most customers do want some kind of diversity in some places. Some have to even, and I think Microsoft's done extremely well in how they position themselves for that as well. So I was at Ignite in 2019 when they announced the preview of Arc, which I think now is a cornerstone of Microsoft's strategy around bringing that into multi-cloud management and making Azure your control plane effectively of whatever your ecosystem is, stretching into what your on-prem, your other clouds, etc.
Yeah, so that's maybe an interesting example to use. So if we took, Azure Arc as an example, 2019 as sort of the preview at Ignite, for you and your team and your role at Atos, what's then like the timeline of, right, we know Microsoft are, coming to market with this. It's probably going to be a cornerstone of solutions that we can deliver. What's your then timeline in terms of building that into your overarching sort of go-to-market strategy and service lines? How does that sort of timeline work when it's around sort of big products that Microsoft are bringing out?
Yeah. So hopefully we have some idea of what's going to be on stage at Ignite and maybe get onto some private previews generally. So we can work on the engineering of this. If we think this is going to be big or this is going to be useful, we can do something with our customers for this and innovate to get on that, so that at the point something actually becomes GA, we want to be there to be able to say to our customers, we've been there on this journey, we've been working with Microsoft, and we know how to deliver this for you. I think a great recent example of that was the announcement of the new Sovereign Cloud certification and Sovereign Cloud program that Microsoft announced in June, or would it be July? We got to be a nice logo behind Satya announcing that on stage, working with Microsoft beforehand, so that we're in a position to go to our customers and talk about the new releases and features coming out in Sovereign Cloud.
Yeah. And I guess you're probably quite well placed to give us a bit of a deep dive on that Sovereign Cloud piece. So for anyone that's not come across it or just seen, the press release and the logo, what is Sovereign Cloud as a concept? How could organizations use it if they're interested in that as a product set? I thought we'd take a very quick break from this week's episode of Microsoft Mentors the podcast to just talk a little bit about why the podcast and the community that it serves is so important to us as part of our purpose here at Cloud Decisions and the purpose it drives within the wider Microsoft ecosystem. We've been involved here at Cloud Decisions in the Microsoft ecosystem for over a decade now, working with Microsoft partners and businesses with strong alignment to Microsoft technologies and their technology teams to help them to grow and scale their teams in cloud, security, data, and AI. For the past year, we've been working really hard behind the scenes to develop two core talent solutions that are built with our customers in mind and enable Microsoft-aligned businesses to access the talent they need to grow and scale their teams and ultimately hit their business objectives. We've developed CDX, our own proprietary talent intelligence system that uses custom AI, large language models and natural language processing to enable you as an organization, as a technology leader, to make insight-led technology decisions on all of your permanent hires and gives us the data that we really need to take your role to market to execute the search. We've also been working with customers here in the UK and in the US through Global Source, our global talent solution that is built to enable organizations to build borderless technology teams for permanent, contract, and flexible outsourced resources. So if you're a Microsoft partner or you are a technology leader within a business with a strong Microsoft technology alignment, and you'd like to know a little bit more about how CDX could fuel your permanent hires or how Global Source could offer you a global talent strategy, then feel free to reach out. And now let's get back to this week's episode of Microsoft Mentors, the podcast.
I think you get a different answer of what Sovereign Cloud is. If you ask 10 people, you probably get a slightly different answer of what it means. And it could mean anything from using standard public Azure with a set of guardrails to make sure your data is staying in specific regions and countries you want it to. It could extend that to using specific HSMs. So one of the big announcements recently that is coming out soon is the ability to use your own HSMs. And as Atos, we're relatively unique that we also make HSMs out of our hardware division, which gives you that extra layer of security beyond using the public cloud providers' key vaults and generated keys, or bringing your own keys. You can have it generated and used by your own hardware. The other big announcement from Microsoft was around what they're calling Data Guardian, which is saying a European customer will be supported exclusively by European staff, for example. So putting internally in their structure assurances that you will be supported by European staff and wouldn't have people outside of Europe supporting you. To go in the step further beyond that, to having private cloud or hybrid cloud with Azure Local or Azure Local disconnected. So it's running inside of a data center. Could be a client's data center, could be your provider's data center. Again, I think as Atos, we're fortunate that we do have a lot of data centers, not just in Europe, but around the world. So you can have Azure Local hardware running inside of a European data center in a completely disconnected mode, potentially. Something, again, that was announced at Ignite last year. And it's currently in preview, should be out soon. We've got the national partner clouds as well, that for Microsoft exist in France and Germany, which is where a local partner is running them on behalf of Microsoft, which will be an interesting play to see how that competes, as obviously there are other competitors for that kind of national cloud across Europe. So it'll be interesting to see how that competes there. And the other piece, of course, that was announced was M365 local. So the ability to run initially Exchange and SharePoint on Azure Local, which kind of makes me smile, as for the last few years it was all about getting rid of Exchange and SharePoint legacy versions and move to 365, and now 365 has come back on-prem.
Yeah, it's an interesting. I guess that whole sort of continuum that you just went through, it's different levels, isn't it? You can be right up in, still in public cloud, but have your guardrails and your sort of geographic barriers in there, all the way down to you want to be totally almost managing Azure in your own data center, have total control of that. I guess from Microsoft's perspective, it's a play that strengthens them for any organizations that is maybe looking at, that sort of cloud repatriation type model, whereas they want to get that sort of more control back, then actually they can still get a lot of the advantages from Azure, but bring that a little bit closer to home rather than it being so sort of out in the public cloud. Yeah,
exactly. And there can be multiple reasons for wanting some stuff closer to home. It might be residency, could be latency. And we've seen a lot of demand for Azure Virtual Desktop on local, for example, to get that low latency and have it located much closer to your users when maybe the closest Azure region might be 10, 20, 30, 40 millisecond latency away from you. That's become quite a solid offering that we see a lot of interest in.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess, when you've got big things happening, big product releases, new service lines coming into the Microsoft business unit, what are the sort of key levers that you're thinking, right, I know that if we're going to really push on sovereign cloud, I need to pull lever X, Y, and Z, internal upskilling, partner strategy, alliance. What do those moving parts look like for you, Adam?
Yeah, that's so upskilling and training is obviously a huge thing, especially when we're bringing out brand new product areas and ideas, and making sure that we've got the right mix to be able to deliver those, but not just from a technical basis, but also from a solutioning and pre-sales perspective, so that our sales communities and our customer account teams know what the art of the possible is. I think for me, it's really important when we're looking at client challenges to not just look at what the technical challenges are, but what are the business challenges? What are the business problems we're trying to solve? And not just look at it from a bottom up of how do we ram in this brand new shiny technology, which I think as technologists, we can sometimes really like to take something cool and think, how do we use this? But also to come from the other side and think, what's the business challenge we're trying to solve with this? And being able to upskill across those is really critical. I think it's something Microsoft are very good with their own learning and development programs for how they can enable their partners to upskill, to train. In general, when they're announcing new products, they tend to be quite good at following soon behind with learning and development around it. Not always, but generally. And how we then take that internally to, like you say, to our business lines, to our account teams, to our run teams, to be able to skill and develop on that. But I'm a firm believer that certifications and trainings are all good, but nothing's better than actually getting your hands on something and having a play with technology and understanding it through real life play and experience with it.
Yeah. And it's an interesting point that you make there on the sort of the sales and pre-sales and solution sort of upskilling and sort of enablement on that side. Because I think generally people do think more on the delivery side, which is, how are we going to get our people on our teams technically capable to deliver, to get to a point where they can go and, run it out into production for customers. But the other side of that is the, that sales side, account teams, customer success teams, pre-sales teams, they're all as integral to the whole customer journey, aren't they? So they need to be on as fast a ramp up upskilling. It's a slightly different type of upskilling, but they need to get there as alongside the technical team. So you've got a holistic approach across a practice where everyone's singing from the same sort of hymn sheet, I guess, for customers.
Yeah, for sure. For instance, we just did a co-developed program where we're looking not just at Microsoft training, but internal training of what our, let's say, flavor of Microsoft solutions are, how we build out those ecosystems with partner solutions as well to bring in and, let our sales force know what we've got and what our capabilities are, who to go to find out more, and those kind of things.
Yeah. And you mentioned briefly earlier about the sort of the balance between global and local for you. Do you find there is differentials between different regions? Would you have different needs or see different needs just because of the economies that your team's working in, APAC versus EMEA versus LATAM? What's that look like?
Oh yeah, for sure. And I would say we've got different customer demands in different regions. We see, certainly for us, different regions might be stronger in certain industries than others. The sovereign topic we're talking about is very hot in Europe right now, not as hot, for example, in the US. So yeah, there are certainly different demands we see in different regions on what technologies people are looking at, what solutions they're looking at. The kind of customers we work with, you'll see a lot of large enterprise customers maybe well on the way on their cloud journey, but will have large amounts of legacy systems where new, smaller businesses who are starting in the last 10 years as a more cloud-native company to start with will be much further on the journey of how they might be running their application stack.
Yeah. I guess, like you say, those bigger, larger organisations, they've probably got much deeper rooted legacy technology that's more difficult to unpick than someone that has started in a much more cloud native fashion.
Yeah. I think 20 years ago, I remember going into data centers doing cabling as one of my early jobs. And as a colorblind person, terminating Cat5 cable was always a challenge. But plugging cables into mainframes, and I think if you told me 20 years ago that we'd still be buying mainframes today, I think, well, we're surely not. Yes, although we do a lot of mainframe modernization and migration work, there's still a lot of mainframe around, and it's not shrinking as much as you might think.
Yeah. And, with everything that's happening now in the tech world, it would be irresponsible of us not to talk about the AI world. So I guess from your side, Adam, where do you see it, in terms of where we're at now with the current state in AI, and I guess what's your sort of, if you were going to put medium long term predictions on how it's going to actually be embedded into enterprise technology stacks, what's that going to look like as well? Do you think?
It's definitely not something that's going anywhere. And if I look at where we're seeing the largest adoption of Gen AI now, whether internally with clients, we see a lot of stuff in how it's going into the support lifecycle, whether that be helping with problem and knowledge management, helping with call resolutions and notes on incidents, etc., moving forwards to predictive analysis of finding problems before they occur. This is, I think, is an area that's growing rapidly. In some aspects, I'd even call it relatively mature where we are right now with rolling that out with customers. The other one is sort of development, agentic agents assisting with coding. I wouldn't say it's taking over completely from the developers yet, but it's certainly allowing developers to do more, do it faster, potentially at a higher quality as well. So we're seeing a lot of work around how these sort of agentic agents can play in, let's say, app modernization, for example. And we just announced our Polaris AI platform the other week, which is exactly that, an agentic platform allowing clients to build AI agents off a bunch of sort of starting templates we've created that we're using as a kind of customer zero thing as well, for exactly like that, sort of assisting in customer call analytics and things like that. Are we at a point yet that you might have 100% interaction with an AI agent who takes action and does stuff and closes the ticket? Maybe in some small companies that have really just gone for it. I think we're probably still a way off before seeing that universally adopted and really taking humans out the loop. I think anyone who isn't using AI to help their day in some way is going to be falling behind the curve soon. I use Gen AI at some point in my sort of work day continually these days, whether it be the simple ones. I think probably one of the most common Copilot use cases is notes in meetings, but which is extremely useful and has definitely got a lot better. If people tried it a year ago and thought it's not that good, it's definitely got a lot better since then. To helping me understand my day. I remember being taught by a Microsoft guy. Apparently, there's someone around the Microsoft campus. So every time you get in the lift, ask them what's their Copilot prompt of the day. But yeah, asking it to summarize all the chats I get mentioned in, all the document reviews where someone's mentioned me, things in emails. But that does require change of attitude to how people do stuff. So if you're reviewing a document and you want me to read a comment, make sure you at me. Otherwise, I might not ever read it.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? I think I'm probably on the same sort of thought process as you, that we are probably, steps away from it being pure interaction in AI. Will we get there? Potentially. It's interesting how the whole public discourse though plays into your own mindset. I got a phone call today, and it was from a person, okay, but just their cadence and their voice. I spent the first 30 seconds thinking, I'm not sure if this is just a really good AI that I'm talking to. And it's interesting how that just plays into your mind, that actually now you are kind of thinking, am I talking to a person or am I not? And it's same when, if you go on to any online chat help bot, at what point are you talking to the AI? At what point are you talking to a human agent? Sometimes it is really indiscernible. So we're already sort of itching towards that. Do we reach a tipping point where, some of those roles which we now see humans being in totally disappearing? I think potentially at some levels. What are your thoughts on, in that developer example, for example, do you think that with the development of AI's capabilities, it will cut out layers of development teams at that lower level that are potentially, currently needed?
it might reduce the number of people needed to achieve a particular goal and project. But rather than reduce the number of developers, how about we increase our ambition on what we want to achieve? I think one thought I've had on this from a personal perspective is I've got for a lot of where I am in my career through learning from other people around me and making mistakes and being allowed to make mistakes, because there's nothing better than figuring out not to do something that way again, other than doing it for the first time. And then building on that and becoming better and learning from it. That I think some of these opportunities might be decreased by AI in the workplace, on where you get your next fantastic developer from, when a lot of that learning experience that they had over the last 10 years of their career or whatever might be a very different learning experience for someone starting today. So it'll be interesting times ahead.
And if you were sort of talking to, or advising someone that is maybe either coming into the tech industry now, or early careers, I guess the advice that we would have given Adam back when he was a network engineer is very different to that advice now. So
yeah,
I guess
sure.
What do you think people in their early IT tech careers should be really thinking about at this point, if they want to sort of ensure long-term career prospects?
You cannot ignore Gen AI and be good at using it. I think that's a fundamental thing now, that developers are still going to exist. They're not going to be completely replaced by AI agents for quite a while, I'd say. They're still going to have a role in the chain on how they teach them to write better code. As I think we already get issues where you keep generating AI content and you keep learning on the content that's been generated by AI, it's not necessarily going to get better. But anyone coming into the workplace has to be really good at prompting and understanding how to interact and work with AI today. I think that is really key in any position. You might be going into consulting, you might be going down a development route.
Yeah, look, much less crawling around on your hands and knees plugging in server racks, isn't there, these days?
Someone still has to do that.
If you look at yourself as a leader, I guess sort of a bit of introspection, really. What's your leadership style look like? How do you try to sort of build that into how you build your cultures within your teams? What's that look like from your side, Adam?
I think if you ask people who've worked for me recently, I'll probably be described as quite a laid-back style of leader. The way I learn is by surrounding myself with really brilliant people and hopefully mutually learn from each other. And if we take, I've never really been a developer, but everything I learned about infrastructure as code, I learned from the people who I was working with and who were working for me on how to do these kind of things. And as a leader, I like to surround myself by talented people that I can learn from. And if I'm always incredibly happy when I see them succeed and take the next steps in their career as well. So that's, I think, for me, something's been really important. And like I say, I tend to be quite a relaxed and laid back leader in my approach. I think if you can't have a laugh with your team at work, that's a problem. Even in a high stress situation, I think it's important to try and just occasionally take a little pause and have a laugh and have a bit of a chill moment sometimes, and not get too stressed and over involved in what's going on around you.
Yeah, definitely. Ultimately, we spend a lot of our lives at work, don't we? So you've got to enjoy it sometimes as well, haven't you? Even though it is work. And you mentioned earlier on about that sort of 5-year plan that you had that eventually sort of has pretty much transpired to where you kind of thought it would do. So what's that 5-year plan for you now, Adam?
Oh, now you sound like my boss. That's a very good question on where do I see myself in the next 5 years. For now, I want to concentrate on where I've got to. I've only been doing this position for 6 months, so we'll concentrate on that. But I want to be, I see myself in a strategic leadership position. Right now, it's very Microsoft centric, and I think that'll continue for a reasonable path through the future. And then we'll see what whether that be taking more senior positions where I am or moving into different fields and technologies beyond Microsoft. I think we'll have to see.
Yeah, that's assuming that we still have jobs in 5 years' time as well. It might be Adam AI Dolman might be in charge by then. Cool. No, really appreciate getting a bit of a feel for sort of your perspective on a lot of that stuff, Adam, and I guess feeling what that career path would look like for you, and hopefully there'll be some interesting lessons in there that people can understand. I'm a infrastructure engineer or cloud engineer now, and there is a pathway of possibility to continue growing your careers and developing into different roles. So I think it's really useful for our listeners to be able to understand that. So really appreciate your thoughts on all of that. Should we dive into Microsoft Mentors quickfire round and see how much fun we have? So some of them will be sort of either or questions. Some of them might be a little bit more sort of open-ended. But yeah, the idea is just to rattle through, just to get an idea on your thoughts on some of this. So the first one I think I can guess the answer for, but I'm going to go with it anyway. So all in cloud or hybrid by design?
Hybrid.
Yeah, I thought it might be the case based on the conversation that we had. What would be, if you could, what would be your favourite Microsoft product or product set of all time?
Oh, of all time?
Yeah.
that's a tough one. Can I say Excel?
You can, yeah, you can. I do like Excel. I've got a big fan.
The tool that's become Excel everything to everybody, but
yeah, Copilot has transformed my use of Excel.
I shouldn't say this as a Microsoft guy, but I'm using a Mac right now, and I've got to say I do like their Mac software suite as well.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, well, you must have listened, because the one that I always use to trip up Microsoft people is Windows or Mac. So you've you've opened that one up. I guess from a more personal career perspective, is there one standout piece of advice or tip from a mentor that you still sort of think about?
Yeah, so a former career mentor of mine who unfortunately has passed away now told me once that when someone asks you something, don't answer it with could, should, maybe. It's yes or I'll find out and get back to you, but never give hazy answers.
Yeah. It's one of those things, especially in customer-facing scenarios. It's might not have the depth of information now, but let's get back to you on it and let you know.
Yeah, and that one definitely stood with me as it's come up a few times where I've gone to say, we could probably do that, and then I've thought back and I'll say, I'll either go for yes or let's get back to you before I say yes.
Yeah, definitely. Back onto the AI train, if we take Copilot out of the mix, because most people in the Microsoft world use that a lot, are there any other AI tools that you're finding really handy at the moment?
Yeah, so I've been playing around with Claude Code as well from Anthropic, just to, like I say, I like to keep my hands dirty. So yes, I use GitHub Copilot, but Claude beat it there with its agentic offering. So I was playing around with that before the agentic GitHub Copilot came out, which was good fun.
Yeah. I've been using Claude quite a lot over the last couple of months. Actually, I think in terms of just writing content and articles and things like that, I think it's got a slightly more human tone to something like ChatGPT in terms of how it creates and writes. It's quite good at understanding and learning things like tonality and voice and stuff, which is good. And then outside of the career, the tech world, what do you do to keep yourself busy, Adam? What's your sort of go-to hobbies?
I'm a regular theatre goer. So I think I'm at 30 shows this year nearly already. So
wow.
That's something I try to do at least once a week.
Top pick
it's not running anymore, I'd say. The best thing I've seen this year. I think it was already finished, but I did like Evita. If you've seen the videos on Instagram or whatever for the singing from the balcony.
Nice. And final one. I always like to know, mainly because it helps me fantasize about summer holidays. You've got an unlimited budget. You've got no restrictions. Where are you jumping on a plane to?
I would love to go and explore more of Asia. Giant destination to look at. I'd love to go around Southeast Asia a bit more.
Yeah. That'd definitely be up there for me. Well, Adam, thanks very much for your time. It's been great to learn a bit more about you and get to know a bit more about Atos and what you guys are doing with the Microsoft business unit over there. So thanks very much for your time, mate.
Cheers. Take care.
Have a good one.